let's go ahead and talk about the idea of Cournot. So for Cournot, and I gotta set up my whiteboard again. Okay. So this is a case where we have two firms that are not cooperating with one another, but they are engaged in a type of competition that is not competition that we're used to. They're not price takers. It's not perfect competition, and we don't end up with a price taking equilibrium. And sometimes it's called Corno Nash Equilibrium, but and that's only because the person Corno is one person, and then Nash is another person that came a lot later and extended the idea of Corno equilibrium to apply to many more cases. And again, there are things that you can watch that I've posted in the videos that go through these things in great detail. But as I promised, I wanted to focus on getting you guys ready for the final exam with the time that we were going to spend together. So let's talk about the Corno problem. So if we think about it, where Cournot is going to begin for us is we're going to acknowledge again that there's going to be an industry level of output, and this is a special case of oligopoly. It's called duopoly. We only have two firms, but a special case of duopoly. And we know that the industry output is going to be consisting of just the output from firm one and firm two. There are no other firms. So that's where we begin our analysis. And what you really want to like focus in on is that we do have this golden rule. And I talk about this more again on the lectures that are posted online already. But to break it down, right, whenever firms are going to maximize profit, they're going to do so by setting marginal cost equal to marginal revenue. That's like the big idea for solving all of these problems. So we have to find some way of thinking about or illustrating or calculating the marginal revenue functions for the firms in these sort of novel situations. Notice in all of the problems, the marginal cost function will be given. The only time you really have to worry about the marginal cost, and that becomes an issue, is when you're dealing with the Cournot, not the Cournot, the cartel case that we just finished. But apart from the cartel, monopoly cartel, the marginal costs will just be given. You don't have to worry about it. So for each of these firms, we need to find the marginal revenue of firm one and set it equal to the marginal cost of firm one. And likewise, for firm two, we want to do the same thing. But it turns out that in the Cournot case, the marginal revenues of the two firms are connected. And I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I'll talk to somebody really quickly just to get some feedback on this. So Wombly, I haven't seen you in a little while. How are you doing?
I'm good, President.
Okay, good. Can you hear me? I can't hear you very well. If you could speak up a little bit, that would be helpful.
Yeah, sorry, one sec. There you go. Okay, is that better?
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit better. So the idea in Cournot Nash equilibrium in a duopoly model is that you only have two firms supplying to the market. So I don't know what's a really good case of duopoly in the real world today. I don't know, can you think of any products or services where it seems like you really only have two choices? Um,
There's always stuff like for with a few choices. I guess certain things though would be maybe like sodas, because Coke or Pepsi really holds like a majority of like the market, and they own all these other
okay,
ones, or maybe like PlayStation versus Xbox, something like that for gaming
yeah,
consoles.
okay. I like the PlayStation Xbox example. That's, I think, a really good one because really for like console gaming, um, what are you gonna do? Get a Wii?
Yeah.
You know, like um, when my kids were little, I got them a Nintendo Wii, but you know, those are very different types of games than the stuff that you play on Xbox and PlayStation. Um, so yeah, and maybe Windows Mac, but you know, there's kind of a problem that is for operating systems, Brian, and I agree with you. Um, but now we're getting the Chromebooks with the Android, you know, Android operating system stuff, and then there's all the Red Hat and the rest of it. But I could be wrong. I mean, but like for console gaming, I know they started to do. My son for a while he wanted to get a Steam box, and I don't know if that would have been like a good alternative or not. We have
Yeah,
a
it's PC, but
PlayStation.
really I don't know very much about it, so it'd be like a little different. But I'm not sure to
Yeah,
be honest.
but yeah, so Windows, Mac, I think that's right in the operating system, Brian. I think that's a good example. But I really like the Xbox and the PlayStation example because I think it kind of illustrates, okay, so at least the dynamic of the Corno Nash environment when you have a duopoly, and you know, maybe you have greater awareness of this than I do, Wombly. I don't know. Do you play games on PlayStation or on Xbox?
I did a while, but I've just been too busy. But yeah, I think I know like a decent amount about it.
Yeah, well, so what really the thing is, if they're duopoly competitors, then you can see it a lot of times with their like pricing and like their output decisions that they're you know, in a situation where like, oh, if you know PlayStation drops its price, then it's like a signal that Xbox is going to be doing the same thing. Um, so they have this kind of like tightness in the way because people are always choosing just between those two alternatives, right? So it's like, well, if you know, Xbox raises its price, then I can, as PlayStation, go ahead and raise my price. But if they don't, um, it's going to be hard for me. Um, anyway, I don't know if you've seen that in any of like the sales or the advertising. Sometimes it has to do with like when they release a new version, like PlayStation 5 versus PlayStation 4, and then is a new Xbox going to be coming, and are they going to be adding a feature? Are they going to be having VR? But if you see kind of like a close connection, though imperfect, I mean they're competing with each other, but you know, yeah, I suppose that's the whole thing is that they have to constantly be observing what each other are doing. They can't just ignore their competitors. And and I want to point out that's different from competition, because in perfect competition, right, the only thing that business needs to know is the market price. They don't have to know what, you know, like let's think about, you know, what's an example of a very competitive industry, and I'll give you one. Um, Painters, right? I don't know if you had your house painted inside or out recently, Wombly.
No, not really recently, to be honest.
Yeah, well, you could look in the phone book and you're going to see 1,000 painters, and you know, also a lot of people would just do painting themselves, right? So the painters have to worry about, you know, will somebody like hire their grandson, or are they going to do it themselves? So that's a very, very competitive market for painting. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And so Painter Joe doesn't have to know if Painter Phil down the street or Painter Sally in the next city, what price they're charging, right? Painter Joe just needs to pay attention to his own costs and what the demand is like, how many people he could possibly serve. But he's not constantly in a situation where he has to be looking at what other painters in the neighborhood are doing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's what it is to be in a price taking environment. Price taking means I just have to know, oh, well, the typical price for a painting job is, paint a house for $3,000, which includes the cost of materials. And either I can do it or I can't, but I don't have to worry about, again, somebody else, that's a painter and how they're going to do it. It's just, I pay attention to the costs and that's it. But in these duopoly environments, there's a lot of like I said, will PlayStation be having a sale this holiday season? If so, Xbox might feel like they have to do some price matching. Will PlayStation be coming out with a new console and new games? And so then there's pressure on Xbox to do the same thing. They have to constantly be referring to each other's decisions. And the way that shows up. So anyway, I don't know that I did a great job, only because finding this stuff in the real world is kind of difficult. But I can give an example. So who was it that talked about was it Brian that did the Mac and the PC thing?
Yeah, that's what I put.
Well, okay, so you may know that Windows was because before that there was no Windows, right? There was the DOS operating system, which was a command line interface where to get to files and stuff like that, you have to type commands into the computer. And then Mac came out with the first point and click interface, and then Microsoft developed Windows like directly as a result of that. So do you see what I mean, Brian? That they're paying attention to each other.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, and that wouldn't happen again in a perfectly competitive environment. So how do we model that? Well, it starts with the demand. We have PB is equal to some function, and I'll just put 100 minus 2Q, where Q is the industry quantity, and then what we do is we'll substitute in our definition for industry quantity in terms of the two different firms in the duopoly. Okay, so now we have this sort of expression that captures, we're acknowledging that there are just two firms here, and so we have to get from that to the marginal revenue for each of the firms. And so the Nash assumption is, okay, best response, so that one player in the game always offers the best response to whatever the other player does. So in the case of Mac and PC, well, Mac develops a command line interface, or a point and click interface, and so PC develops a point and click interface. That's their best response. And best here means most profitable. That's what it always means in the context of business, right? Best has to do with whoever makes the most profit, making the most profit. Now, the other thing is it's the best response, assuming the other player doesn't change. So you're choosing your best response to what you see the other player doing. That's Nash behavior. And the way that we end up modeling it is we have to start with our definition of revenue. So this is kind of, and I'll just put this over like in one panel. This is kind of like the gist of where we begin thinking about this problem. And in terms of implementing it, and I'll put this over here, maybe in red. Okay. So in terms of actually implementing it, remember, we want to find the marginal revenue. So the goal is to find an expression for the marginal revenue MR of each firm that captures the, and this is language that people sometimes use, the interdependent nature of the market because of a small number of competitors. Okay, so we want to find an expression for MR1, for example, and then one for MR2. So how do we do that? Well, remember the definition of marginal revenue. So MR1 is equal to the change in the revenue of firm one divided by the change in the output of firm one. Or in other words, it's the derivative of the revenue function for firm one. So I'll put a 1 there, okay? So, but it's the revenue of firm one considering that firm one's revenue is dependent upon the decision that firm two makes. Okay, so we have the connection of the demand function, and we're going to use that right now. Remember, the definition of revenue for firm one is going to be the price that firm one charges times the quantity that firm one produces. Now, this is where, and so is this making sense, Wombly?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep up.
Okay, well, so I'm gonna now use this PB here, okay, and I'm gonna rewrite it, but I'm gonna use the PB considering the connection that we noted to the left here. So I'm gonna use, come on, it's not letting me highlight this. Okay, I'm gonna be using that. Do you see?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'm just going to be explicit and say, okay, I have 100 minus 2, and I'll change my brackets just so we don't get confused. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 2 just to make the algebra look cleaner times Q1. Okay, so is it clear where I got this expression from, Wombly? Oh, well,
Yeah,
actually,
you plugged in the PB from before and then just
I
added
should
in
have
the
put that.
Q1 that was already there.
Yeah. And I almost made a mistake because this should have been a Q2. Okay. So now the next thing I'm going to do is just distribute the terms so we can see things a little bit more clearly how they break down. And I'm going to have 100 Q1 minus, and I'm going to rearrange things a little bit. I'm going to hit Q2 times Q1, and then minus 2 Q1 squared. Okay, and I could just write this, times Q1 again, but that's Q1 squared. Okay, so do you follow this part, Wombly? Does that make sense? I just rewrote what was above.
Yes. Just distribute,
Okay. Yeah. So now I want to calculate the marginal revenue, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take the derivative of this expression with respect to Q1. And the one thing that might be a little bit tricky here for you is there's a Q2, and we're taking the derivative with respect to Q1, and you may not know how to, or it may look weird, but remember, I have this little caveat over here. Do you see, Wombly? Assuming the other player doesn't change. And that tells me what I need to do with the Q2 over here when I calculate the derivative, which means I just treat the Q2 as a constant and I don't do anything with it. So my result is going to be 100 minus 2 Q2. And then if you remember the power rule from did you have calculus already, Wombly?
Yeah.
Okay, then the power rule is I take the exponent and multiply it by the coefficient and then drop the power of the exponent by 1. So I'm going to have minus 4 Q1. Oh, double negative there. Okay, so this is the expression that we wanted to get to. Okay, and are there any questions about that? Does anybody have a question or a comment or a concern? Okay. And so given that I hear no objections, so then we would simply take MR1 and set it equal to MC1. Okay, but what you all might notice at this point in time, right, is we're kind of stuck because MC1 is going to be a function only of Q1. So let's just say to find an expression that maxes the profit of firm 1, right? But you'll notice, right, we're still going to have a Q2 trapped in there. So I'll go ahead and continue this. I'll move this panel over a little bit. Okay. And then I'll start another one here. And so, for example, suppose MC1 is equal to 3 Q1, okay? MR1 equals MC1 will be, based on what we had before, we'll have 100 Q1, oh, sorry, 100 minus 2 Q2 minus 4 Q1 is equal to 3 Q1. Okay, and let me go back and make sure I have all my calculations correct. Yeah, I think it looks fine. And just to be really clear, all I did for my MR1 is take that expression over there. Is that clear, Wombly?
Yes.
Okay, so now solve for Q1, and I'll end up getting, I'll just take some intermediate steps. So hopefully you all can agree with my algebra. I'll say 7 Q1 is equal to 100 minus 2 Q2. Okay, that looks good, I guess. And so then Q1, and I'll put a little, like I'll put 2 stars by it. And I chose 2 stars for a reason, but but I'll explain what that reason is in a minute. so that'd be 100 divided by 7, right? Minus 2 divided by 7 times Q2. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So we did the thing that we would normally do, right, to solve for the profit maximizing quantity of output for firm 1, but look where we end up, Wombly. We end up
Q2.
Yeah, so we have no answer. Right, but this expression Q1 double star, this is what we call the Cournot reaction function, because it shows the most profitable reaction of firm 1 to choices made by firm 2 with respect to output. Okay, so I'll see if I can move it around and make it a little bit clearer. I'm trying to get reaction function on the same line. Well, okay, I'll do it this way. Okay, so that's what this is called, and the double equal sign means it's a definition. Okay, so the Nash equilibrium, or the Nash Cournot Nash equilibrium, and we normally write equilibrium like that, is the intersection of the reaction functions of both firms. Okay, so we did all of this work to calculate the reaction function for firm one, but we also need to go through and do all the work again, replacing MR1 with MR2 and the revenue for firm two to calculate a reaction function for firm two. Okay, you follow, Wombly? So and we could do that. Everything would be the same here, except for possibly the marginal cost of firm two might be different. And in most of the problems on Ignition, it is. So, but if we had the reaction function for both firms, then we would have two equations in two unknowns, Q1 and Q2. We could substitute the reaction function for one of the firms into the reaction function for the other firm, and then solve for the output of one of the firms, and then substitute that back into the original reaction function for the other firm, just like we saw simultaneous equations in the consumer choice problem and in basic supply and demand. So does that make sense, Wombly?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is what I wanted to cover today, and I know you all will be working on the homework for Cournot, and I think that you guys are in good shape to do the first part of the homework, as long as you understood what we talked about in lecture today. Again, there are more details in the videos that are already posted for the course, and you're welcome to watch those judiciously, but hopefully you get the idea that you need to find reaction functions for firm one and firm two, and then use them in a simultaneous equations solution to find the actual output for the two firms. And once you've done that and you're comfortable with it for Cournot, the only thing, other thing that we have to talk about is the Stackelberg solution, which will be the last topic that we'll cover. So we have a little bit of time to talk about that. So I would say get started on the Cournot homework, and then we'll meet again next Tuesday, and then we'll work through some problems, and then we'll introduce Stackelberg, and then you all should be in really good shape for our final exam. Does anybody have any questions for me? No. There's one thing I want to draw your attention to, and that is, please do me a favor and complete the course evaluations. I always like to hear from my students and get feedback. And it's something that's completely anonymous. So, but the only thing that's kind of a little bit sad is that if nobody does it, then I don't get any feedback. And I would like to get you all, as many of you, to go ahead and provide comments as possible. So please take some time today. I'm going to end 5 minutes early. And did you all get there should have been an email, Brian? Did you get an email about course feedback?
Yeah, I got it, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, it was, you know, try to spend a few minutes now and fill it out, or, you know, just put it on your to-do list, okay? Thank you. And I'll see you all next Tuesday. I'm gonna just hang on and in case anybody has any questions, and let you all file out.
Have a good day, Professor.
Okay, thanks. Thank you too.